where does the idea of freedom come from? Where was this idea originally invented? Were ideas are like technologies? Are they invented? This idea of love, was love invented? Was freedom invented? Or are these things ideas that were an invention of man? Or are these instincts that we've always had? Or are these instincts that we've always developed? Science tends to favor this idea that we're not only evolving physically, but we're evolving mentally, and our thoughts are evolving as we get further and further away from the moment of our coming, or our thoughts are going to get more and more complex and more detailed as our physicality and our existence becomes more and more detailed and more complex, and possibly this growth could come to an end and will reappear in a different form. So then, what is the answer? Where does this idea of freedom come from? Is it instinct? Is it innate in all of us? If we were to isolate you and we were to put you in a different habitat without any humans, would you still express a high aptitude for freedom? Or would you not care what that idea is if it was not for the education that you received growing up from your parents and from being exposed to the world that you were exposed to in all its complexities growing up? Would you still be in search of freedom? Would you still want to be free? It's a very complex question. The reason why I ask this is because the United States is a country that promotes the idea of freedom. We promote freedom, liberty. It's the very idea that our Constitution is built on. It's the platform of the Declaration of Independence, and but nowhere in the Declaration of Independence or nowhere in our Constitution does it address the idea of where freedom comes from, where the idea of freedom comes from, and whether or not our high affinity for freedom is something that is always advantageous to us. Whether freedom should, like anything else, be a topic to be studied and to be learned very closely and to be studied very closely in a way to understand that possibly too much of it could be wrong, or it's a tool like anything else. It's an idea, and ideas are dangerous. And freedom is an idea like any other idea, and it could possibly be used against you. It could possibly be used to harm you. Again, a lot of the topics that I'm talking about are going to be things that you've never heard and you've never thought about, and you're not going to find these things on the internet, and you're not going to find these points of view in the way that I'm presenting these points of view in any scholastic book and any book or article written by a doctor or a graduate student or anything of that kind. This is 100% original. And genuine. It's sort of like a freebie, I guess, like a goodie bag for listening to what I'm saying. So if a nation understood this sort of philosophy and they had this philosophy, would they come into conflict with the United States simply based on the grounds of philosophy, simply based on the grounds that your nation is promoting freedom and is grounded on the idea of freedom, pre-assumes that there is nothing else that's more important, when freedom is an idea like any other idea, and it could be used to overthrow your country, it could be used to hurt your country, it could be used in a very strategic way to hurt your citizens. A very simple analogy, a very dumbed down analogy that's very, at the same time, very unrealistic. Could you convince a person to practice free will and jump off of a cliff to their death and say, you know what, you don't have free will. You have to, if you were free, then you would jump off of that cliff if you were free. And the person would tell you, well, no, I'm free to jump off the cliff if I wanted to, but it's just I'm practicing my right not to jump off of the cliff. Well, that's my freedom. I'm free to decide not to jump off the cliff. But you're a person that's so smart and so much smarter than this person that you ask them a very simple question. You ask them, well, if you're free to not jump off of the cliff and you're practicing your right not to jump off of the cliff, then how do you know that you're making that choice based on freedom and not fear? How do you know that with the absence of death, with the absence of fear and the absence of death, you would in fact practice freedom and jump off of the cliff? Because that's what you really want to do. You want the adrenaline rush, and you want and the person would sit there and think, okay, so maybe I'm not practicing freedom, maybe I'm just practicing survival instincts to keep myself from jumping off of the cliff. But you're so sinister that you don't allow them to stop there. You take them a step back and you say, but you just said that your decision to not jump off of the cliff was because you're practicing freedom. And I just proved to you that you're not practicing freedom, you're just afraid because you know you're going to die. So in the absence of death, your choice, your freedoms would change, and the person would obviously would have to say, well, obviously I'm constrained by death. I mean, I'm free to a certain extent, but I'm not free from death. But again, you're so sinister that you don't allow it to stop there. You don't allow them to escape this this mental mistake that their mind has made, because what their mind said is that I'm not jumping off of the cliff because I'm practicing my freedom to not jump off of the cliff. But in fact, they're not practicing their freedom. They're practicing their right to live. They're practicing their life to not to not die, which is very different than freedom. So then you ask them, well, the true answer to the question is, of course, I'm not free. I don't have the freedom to decide to jump off of this cliff or not. Well, because I'm constrained, I'm limited by death. I'm limited by options. I don't have the option to jump off the cliff. It's not about freedom. It's about a limitation of options. So I'm put in a position where I'm not able to practice my freedom. Here you would again remind the person that their mind will basically make a mental a thoughtful mistake, and the reason why is because they defend freedom, because in the United States we defend freedom because that's what our psyches were built to defend, our freedom. But it leads us to make mental mistakes, as easy as that. To use freedom, to defend freedom, and ultimately reach and at a conclusion that's wrong, which is ultimately, that's what a paradox is. So if a nation, and that's a very dumb example, this could be very, very complex, and it could get very, very dangerous. If a nation came and said, look, I don't like the way that you promote freedom so vigorously, and I don't like the way that your people practice the idea of freedom, and I don't like your philosophy and your idea of freedom, because I don't like it leading to prostitution and sickness and disease and drugs and chaos and anarchy, and I don't like this idea that you're free to do whatever you want to do, and I don't like promoting that idea. I certainly don't like to use that as the platform of my constitution. Instead, I'd like a constitution that understands that freedom is an idea, and it's an idea that could be very hurtful. So not to allow anybody to come into my country and tell my people to not work and not do this and not do that, because that's not what freedom is. Freedom is doing what you really want to do, and so on and so on. Because the dangerous idea here is when you practice freedom and you teach people that the best thing in this world is to be free, and then that person says, okay, what is being free? Free is what I want to do. And they start to think about what it is that they want to do. But when they think, they're using a mind that generates thoughts from a psyche. And our psyches are malleable. They can be changed. They can be changed with music. They can be changed with propaganda. They can be changed with movies. They can be changed with traumatic experiences. They can be changed with traumatic events. They can be changed in a lot of different ways. Our psyches can change. Whatever it is that our psyches are like, it has the ability to change. The psyche is a defense mechanism in your body. Here's another analogy that I know you've never heard before, and I know that an idea that I know that you've never been exposed to before. A psyche is the defense mechanism of your mind. It's like your eyes and your eyelids. Well, sort of the analogy between your eyes and your eyelids. That's the same thing as your brain and your psyche. Your eyelids cover your eye. Your brain and your thoughts cover your psyche. They're to surface what is really underneath, and what is really underneath is your psyche. What is on the surface are your thoughts, are the physical thoughts that you hear in your head and that you have access to. But your brain is the self-defense mechanism of your body is so high and it's so grand that it defends itself even from you. So even you don't have access to your psyche. Even you don't know what you really, really want to do. A lot of research has been done in this. This idea that we don't really know what our psyches want. One of the researches that I've looked into very deeply is this idea of sexuality and women and the different ways that they will pursue sex. And girls who might not be interested in sex at all, but they find themselves all of a sudden having the incentive or having the urge to wear makeup or paint their toes or their nails. And they're simply too young to want sex, and they're simply too young to ask for sex, and they're not really asking for sex, but they're doing things that are attractive to the opposite sex. So they're subconsciously attracting the opposite sex. Their psyche is attracting the opposite sex. Is that intentional or unintentional? You say, oh, well, there's no way that that's intentional. It's just act. Well, you gotta prove that in science. You can't just we'll make accusations here. You gotta prove that. And a lot of research has been done in this area. Again, this isn't stuff that you're going to find on Google. It's not things that you're going to find on Google Maps. So we'll just understand that I'm giving you a lot of freebies here. So the idea is, what do our psyches really want, and and where is it that this world is going? What direction is this world heading towards? When you wake up in the morning and you wear a certain and you decide to wear a certain color, you decide to wear certain shoes, you decide to have a certain style, you decide to conform with a certain genre of film or music or profession. You decide these things. The underlying mechanism that is making these choices and converting it into what we categorize as thoughts is your psyche. Your psyche is formulating these choices. Well, why? Why is the color shirt that you wear in the morning, is that completely random, or is there something else? Is there some other reason to it? And is there a link between our psyches? Do our psyches have the power to communicate? Is there a hidden communication between? Do certain people have psyches that are more compatible to one another, and you get drawn to a person by this force that is invisible to you, and this information isn't made available to you because your psyche believes that that's going to be a harmful thing. It's going to be it's going to be a harmful thing. So this idea that we make choices, and the fact that these choices come from our psyches, and it makes the psyche the most powerful thing. It makes the psyche the most the most sought after mechanism in a human body. And we know that psyches can be manipulated, and we know that psyches can be changed with propaganda, with stimulus, with and actions can change based on the choices that you make. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go and do this. It's very simple. I mean, you tell a person's psyche says that I'm gonna be an astronaut, and then they go into a physics class and they fail, and they get an F on their first test, and an F on the second test, and an F on their third test, and then the year after that again they fail physics. They fail physics. Their psyche is going to eventually will tell them, don't be an astronaut, go be something else. And their choices change, and they say, okay, well, I'm not going to be an astronaut, I'm going to go and do something else. So outer stimulus will change the thoughts that your psyche produces. Now, what is it exactly that your psyche ultimately wants? What is it really ultimately trying to gain? And if your psyche is able to be manipulated, then if I tell you to go be free, knowing that I have the power to manipulate your psyche, then really I'm telling you to do what I want you to do what I want you to do what I want you to do. But you don't know that I'm telling you to do what I want you to do, because I'm telling you to do what you want to do, but I know that I have the ability to control what you think you want to do. I have the ability to control what you want to do. So if I am very, very smart and I have access to this information, why would I come and use freedom as the platform of my my constitution? Why would I do something like that? And then print the pictures of the people responsible for the Declaration of Independence and for the Constitution and for upholding these documents and these ideas, print their faces on my currency and build statues of them in my state capital and build memorials for them and have holidays that commemorate their excellence and so forth. Why would I go out of my way to promote this idea of freedom and people who stand for that idea, when freedom itself is something that could be jeopardized and it could be hacked? Why would I do something like that? Would you put all your money in a bank account that you know other people can access? This is where I say that I practice science in a different way than a lot of you are used to. This is why I say I call myself a real scientist, where I feel a lot of people who are involved with science around me are simply doing what is taught to them to do in order to sustain a lifestyle, but they're not interested in being real science. They're not interested in practicing real science. So the tension between Iran and the United States has a lot to do with economics. It has to do with a lot to do with philosophy. It has a lot to do with what we consider to be right, and a lot of nations have this tension with the United States. It's not just Iran. The United States has a lot of enemies. It's not just Iran. Before I go into this, I'm an American. I've been put in a situation where something really bad has happened to me on this soil, and the argument has come about that would not have happened to me if I was not in the United States, because of all the animosity and because of all the hatred, because of all the racism that's currently aimed at Muslims in the United States. What happened to me would not have happened to me if I lived out of the United States. And to anybody out there that is interested in the idea of thinking that I'm using race, or I'm pulling the race card to either get attention or to get publicity or anything like that, I'm going to give you a little background as to who I am, well, just to justify myself and to position myself in this conversation. I had done a lot of interviews with prominent American newspapers and magazines. Addressing different topics concerning the United States and the relationship between the United States and Iran. And most of this was during my senior year at UCLA. And I had just finished a novel called Nicholas Crown's Bible. I started to get recognition for my work, and I was politically attacked. And I was forced to leave the country for a few years. And again, that's a topic that's a little bit. It's a little. It requires a little bit more depth. So I'm not out for publicity. I'm not out to get any kind of attention. My grandfather was a prominent actor who was blacklisted in Iran after the 1979 revolution. I have a very strong foothold in entertainment. It's very easy for me to get in contact with producers. It's very easy for me to talk to producers. It's very easy to get myself seen, to get people to see me if I wanted to, if that was what my goal or my intent was. Of course, everyone's entitled to their beliefs, and everyone is entitled to making the judgments that they want. And of course, well, there's always the consequence of being wrong, and we're living with fake thoughts with false thoughts in your head. Which is not too far away from being insane. So the relation between Iran and the United States In the 1930s, Persia changed its name to Iran to associate itself with the Germanic military. Iran is a German word. Farsi, the dialect spoken in Iran, is a Germanic language. A lot of people assume it's Arabic. It's not Arabic. It's a Germanic language. And because of World War I, World War II, this siding with the non-allies, and in the Western world we have this term, if you've ever been in a history class, you know this term, the term allies. So Iran had sided with the non-allies, or as President Bush would say, the axis of evil. This tension will begin in the 1930s when the United States was going through a depression. And years after that, the Shah of Iran predicted that the United States was going to go bankrupt and that the United States would no longer be a nation. The backdrop of this, when you look back to the 1950s and you look back to the 1960s, Iran was a nation that was doing very well for itself. The predictions, because of the Industrial Revolution, because of what had happened in the prior 400 years with the invention of the steamboat and the motorboat and the airplane and the railroads and the tracks and mobility and the market, cars and space exploration and all this, oil became a huge commodity in the world. And Iran has oil. What is important is what every country is able to produce. What is it that you're able to produce? Is it cotton? Is it alcohol? Is it steel? Is it silk? Is it food goods? Is it what is it that your country is able to produce? And whatever country produces more and makes more at the end of the year, makes more money at the end of the year, that's the world that's going to be the leader. That's going to be the first world nation. And those are the first world nations, are the nations that are making more money than all the other countries in the world. And depending by how well you sell and you trade and how much money you're making and how much money your products are making. For example, in the United States, one of the products, for example, in California, we make wine. In Napa Valley, we make wine. If you were to imagine this on a smaller scale, California makes wine. Say, Florida makes oranges, tangerines, or when New York does banking and they do industry. So it's or there's farming in the south. And whatever state has the highest commodity is going to be the one that has more say in the politics of things. Obviously, what is going to bring in more money? Wine or banking. Obviously, banking is going to make more money than wine. So New York is going to do better than Los Angeles. So at that time, Iran was doing better than the United States because Iran produced oil. Iran gave oil to the world. Of course, the backdrop of this, there's a big would debate about the technology that is currently being used in Iran to pull the oil and to produce the oil. And the idea is that the technology is not Iranian technology. But regardless of that, the oil is Iranian oil. I hate to use this analogy, but I'm going to use this analogy. If you can have sex better with my wife than I can, it doesn't mean that you get to have sex with my wife. So if you can produce the oil from my land better than I can, it doesn't mean that you get to have access to my oil. It doesn't mean that you get to come and take my oil from me. Iran was put in a situation where the term rape is used by Iranians themselves very frequently. I think it's the most common analogy, and it's the most common word when it comes to the 1979 revolution of Iran, a revolution that most people are not happy with at all. But at the same time, the tension in Iran, people in Iran, a lot of people out of Iran that are pro the Shah and the regime that he had, it was simply because of how well Iran was doing in comparison to the rest of the world at the time, because of the Western lifestyle that existed and very was synonymous with the Swiss and the British and so forth. This completely changed to this foreign a regime that none of us are familiar with. I mean, this idea of a hijab, this black veil that we're familiar with Muslims wearing, this idea of a hijab is 30 years old in Iran. Prior to the revolution, there was no such thing as a hijab. No one had to wear that. So, and you see the girls around you, the Iranian females around you, they choose not to wear that because they're not familiar with the idea of it. They're not familiar with the culture of it. They're not familiar with. So the idea is, why would this revolution happen, and why would all of a sudden this change of power come into play, and why would it all of a sudden, a nation that's producing oil, which directly has to do with technology, it's the fuel for technology. It's the fuel that feeds industries that fuel technology. Why would this nation all of a sudden